Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.
Lovely. Welcome everyone to the Monday, February 14th Selectboard meeting in Bennington. We're at the Bennington Fire Facility. I'm Jeannie Jenkins, I chair this board, and I'd love for my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting with Gary.
Happy Valentine's Day. I'm Gary Corey.
Hi, I'm Tom Haley.
Jim Carroll.
Jean Connor.
Bruce Lee Clark.
Hi, happy Valentine's Day. It's Sarah Perrin.
Excellent. And also with us tonight, we have Stu Hurd, our town manager, Nancy Lively, who takes great notes for us each meeting, and Jim Byers behind the waving camera. Yes, thank you. All right. So first up, as always, Jim, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jim. And then Jean, would you share our vision statement that guides everything we do?
Absolutely. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much. All right, so first up is the consent agenda, and I'm thinking maybe we'll take the minutes of January 24th, the warrants and the liquor licenses, including the one for the new business, up first. Could I have a motion to accept?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And then minutes of January 31st. Jim, I know you were not there. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Jim, are you abstaining? Yes.
I suppose.
Okay, thank you. All right, one abstention. All right, thank you very much. I didn't ask, were there any corrections on any of those? Man. Are you okay? Okay, sorry about that. All right, so first up is Dr. Trey Dobson to give us the latest COVID update, which we truly, truly appreciate.
So the good news is it should be fairly short. I think everyone's reading about what's going on in the country, and then also that's mirrored here. Let me just say a few things then, so I won't go over the stuff you're already reading. The prevalence of community transmission of the virus is actually really high. It's still really, really high. If you look at the entire state, if you look at most of the country, it's red. Those are those CDC maps, I refer to them as red, that we've been following. So that doesn't mean that's bad news. We see what's happening. The modeling is coming out and showing what's happening with the transmission, which means it's declining. But as you've heard some warnings, if we jump on the bandwagon too quickly and remove all mitigation measures at once, it's not that the transmission will skyrocket back up, but what will happen is people will die, people will get sick in the hospital unnecessarily. None of us want that. People will miss work at higher rates than can be avoided by simply taking a stepwise fashion. So today there's really nothing that should be done, but shortly we can start doing things that reduce our mitigation in whatever order we choose to do those. Some things that haven't changed are being up to date on vaccination is by far the best strategy we have. No, it doesn't prevent you from acquiring the virus, but it does prevent you or helps prevent you from getting very sick, and if not you, someone else. I do hear that a lot. I hear people talk about, yes, but I'm healthy and I'm young, and the whole state's vaccinated pretty much, so I'm just not going to bother with it. And the problem with that individual line of thinking is, if you are boosted, if you're vaccinated up to date, boosted, your period of being contagious is less. So you are contributing to the volume of transmission less than you are if you are unvaccinated. And I'm happy to talk offline with people. I do think that we are moving in a direction of individual accountability, and that's not such a bad thing, but it does mean we have to work with folks who are resistant to chipping in for the entire population. A couple other things. The risk for the general population really is declining. So when I say it's not time to stop all mitigation measures, they are very short in the future, and going in a stepwise fashion will be safe. And in fact, it's pretty much safe depending on what's going on at home. We've talked about this before. If you live with someone who is vulnerable, or if you yourself are vulnerable, of course, you will remain at risk. As prevalence declines, your risk declines, but it'll never be zero. And by that, I really have to emphasize that every one of us has to be mentally and physically prepared. I think I said this last time. But mentally and physically prepared to get sick with COVID-19 just as you might with any other disease. And the level of illness that you are at risk for, of course, varies by age and it varies by comorbidities. So if you are older than 65, or if you have a lot of comorbidities, the way you behave in society is going to depend on the prevalence, and it may be different than someone else, and we have to accept that and say it's okay. All right, and then finally, everyone wants to know what to do in schools, and I'm not going to give an answer about what to do in schools. I can say that if we stop mitigation measures today in schools, the transmission of the virus will increase somewhat. It's not such a bad thing on the surface, but the sequelae are terrible, and that is people getting sick at home. Also, who wants their kid to be sick and out of school for a week? I don't understand that rationalization. So anything we can do to slow down the transmission of the virus does a lot of things for people, even if the risk to a child of getting extremely sick is very low. So I'll stop there and answer any questions anyone has, or I can answer them later as well.
Great. Any questions from the board? Yes, Jeff.
Hi, Doctor. As far as those people who are getting it, is it still prevalent among those who refuse to be unvaccinated?
It is. By now, we have such a high percentage of people that are vaccinated that if we look at the numbers, there's two groups that are becoming moderately to severely ill, and that's older folks, vaccinated or not, and then unvaccinated younger folks. So we still have the 35-year-old coming in the hospital pretty sick and unvaccinated, and we also have the person from the skilled nursing facility who's been vaccinated. They've done the right things. Unfortunately, they're getting pretty sick from the virus.
And what's the youngest case you've had up there?
At our hospital, we've had probably one or two in the 20s, and then more than several in their 30s. But I don't want to give the impression that the hospital's full of sick 30-year-old unvaccinated people. That's not true. But we don't have any vaccinated people who are in their 20s and 30s that get sick. That's not what happened. Unfortunately, the unvaccinated middle age really contribute to the morbidity and mortality in the older population. That's what the individual accountability is all about.
One last question, and that is, with those folks that have refused to be vaccinated, after they recover, do their lungs return to normal, or are they long COVIDs?
Oh, so that's a great question. I think I'll rephrase it, and that is, if you are vaccinated, do you have less of a chance of developing long COVID or symptoms furthermore? And I can't say that the data is conclusive on that. What I can say is biologically plausible that if you are sicker, or if you were sicker for a longer time, you are more likely to develop long-term symptoms. That's true in most any disease that Dr. Dundas has treated or I have treated. So therefore, it would seem plausible. I just can't say for certain that there's data to support that yet. There probably won't be for at least another 12 to 18 months.
Thank you.
Great. Other board questions? Yes.
As a person who takes a vitamin D supplement, I read an article today. Are you aware of that study?
So very early in the pandemic, we're talking April of 2020, there was recognition of vitamin D as a potential way to limit the virus entry into cells. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and I guess they're really finding a correlation between if your vitamin D level is high or high enough, there seems to be support for, it boosts your immune system and there's less disease.
Right, so let me just be careful and say that same statement was made in April of 2020, and it's been 2 years. I feel pretty confident that if it was a magic cure, we would know that by now.
Yeah.
I also say vitamin D is inexpensive, it is without side effect, and therefore, if people want to try to take that, as long as they understand that it's not going to just prevent them, it's nothing like vaccination. I was very hopeful early, as many of us were, and there was some specific populations around the country that had what appeared to be protection from vitamin D. It just hasn't quite panned out. There's a whole homeless population that were sleeping outside, and they weren't getting the disease. They thought it was vitamin D, and it turned out not to be the case. I hope it is the case, and if it is, then we have yet another thing we can do to help.
Yeah, I in no way meant that it was a preventative.
Yeah.
It's just, it
Another
improves your
thing.
immune system.
Yeah.
That's all.
And that's true, and again, almost zero side effect unless you just really overdosed on it, and inexpensive, and therefore, it's not, right now, while we're trying to find out, then it's just fine to take it.
Yeah, okay.
You remind me, though, of something. Last time I was here, we talked about treatments a little bit, and I'll just say that the availability of treatments for those that have COVID-19 and are at risk of getting severe disease, or I should say this, who have tested positive for the virus and are at risk for getting severe disease, the availability is increasing of those medicines, so we're prescribing them. They do have really good efficacy, over 75%, some of them, at keeping people out of the hospital, which is really great news.
Sarah, did you have a question? Oh, that was your, okay, all right. Any other questions from the board? No? Okay. Anyone in the audience have a question? Yes?
Doctor, just one question. We see over time that it looks like Bennington County has at least twice as much, if not sometimes more, per capita case rate. Is there any explanation? We've never been able to figure that out over the last several months.
Yeah, we haven't. We have to look and say what's different, and it's hard to know. It's probably not behavior as much as we think it is, and it's probably more that there is travel that is so prevalent across the border. Travel, early in the pandemic was associated with outbreaks all the time. It seems like it, Dan. That's the only thing that I've been able to see. I also don't spend too much time looking into it because it would take so much research to do so.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? No? Oh, yes.
I have a comment, and that is that I wanted to congratulate Dr. Dobson for all that he's done in these 2 years, which is phenomenal.
There are a lot of people working hard, so thank you all.
Thank you very much. All right, wonderful. All right, so on to public comment. So public comments should be no longer than 3 minutes. The information you're sharing should be useful to all, and this is not a discussion time, but we're happy for you to bring up questions or issues. And as always, if you really want to get an answer, the town manager is your first stop to help you understand things. So, given that, I only see one person who has signed up, Nancy White.
Nancy White, Bennington. I was shocked to go on the town website and read this memo from Burke and White. I learned things about the Putnam Block and the Ben High that the citizens of Bennington should have known for quite a while. Where did the $40,000 come from to pay Burke and White to do this work?
So first of all, I'm going to say that that memo that you're you're referring to has been on the website and was placed there at the time we first discussed the first ARPA discussion that Dan led us through, Dan Monks. And as we discussed when we voted to hire White and Berg, that is money that we can use from ARPA. So we voted to use ARPA money to hire consultants to help us stretch that 3.9 million into as much as we can by looking at how we can couple either ARPA funds with other kinds of state and federal funding or local funding, or or not use ARPA funding at all for some projects, which is what's happened. So Nancy, you probably were in attendance at that meeting. It was the meeting that we did ARPA, Energizer, audit.
I wasn't here that night. I was ill. I should have
Okay.
been here that night.
All right, well, it's been on the website since that night.
Okay. Will somebody make sure the plans for the Putnam Block are going to be here at the firehouse when we vote?
Well, it's a private project.
Well, wait a minute. I just read here that the private project doesn't have a dollar for phase 2. They're looking for $45 million, and now they want the citizens to get pulled into it.
Dan, can I
I mean, the town of Bennington is the
this
people.
is not
There's
a time
been
for
no
discussion.
request for any funds from phase 2 at this time.
There are many suggestions of what they want the town to do, both for the Putnam Block and the private Ben High, which I've tried to
So
get answers about.
Nancy, I'm understanding your confusion. That is a consultant, we asked a consultant to do some groundwork for all of us,
Okay.
and that's the consultant's report. That is not, we have not accepted that, except as a report to us. So all it is their best thinking about things we should be thinking about as a board. But nothing in there has been approved, okay?
Okay. And for the TIF district, the plans have been online for 4 or 5 years. I just read the details. I don't think we've ever had a detailed discussion about those plans. When I'm reading about a bike path on North Street and accommodations for bicycles on Main Street, South Street, North Street, Depot, and Washington, are we talking about running bike paths there?
Nancy, I'm not quite sure how we got from TIF to bike paths, but what I will say to you is that our town manager is a very good source of information for you to make sure you understand what are studies, what's actual, what's using TIF funds, what might be eligible for ARPA funds, all of that. Please sit down with our town manager. It would be really, really helpful.
Jeannie, the BCRC and the BCIC were very involved in these plans, were they not?
Which plans?
For both, and for ARPA and for the TIF district.
So again, Nancy, I'm just really
Jeannie,
going to
my
ask
concern
you.
is this. Are you members of both of those groups?
So BCIC only exists as a holding company at this point, and I am no longer a member of that board because the structure completely changed several years ago. And I am not a BCRC member.
So they haven't taken...
So may I say, please, would you please sit down with the town manager so he can sort of tease this out for you?
Well, again, if we've had plans for 5 years for the downtown, I think there's something wrong when the Selectboard hasn't had public discussion so that citizens know what the plans are.
So may I say, later this evening, we're going to get the TIF annual report and also, I think, a bit of information on where we are on the extension process, which was also a Selectboard public process that we voted on.
Okay.
So TIF will come up later in
Okay.
the agenda.
And last, when you talk about quality of life for the people of Bennington, no one gave us any consideration who owned homes around Energizer. To think that you would want to put 400 apartments in a building?
Nancy, Nancy, again, that is a study that was requested, and whatever they are, Camoin Consulting Company did a study. They did 2 studies, one on possible reuse of the Energizer plant And they did a second study using money that Shires contributed, Shires Housing, to do a housing study. They were both done by Camoin. They're two different studies. One says, here's the mixed use possibilities for Energizer. No one's bought Energizer, so until they do, that's probably not going to happen. And then, or won't happen. And then the other study, which is the housing study, was looking at the number of rental and homeowner units that were likely needed in Bennington. And that looked at both new and renovated. So in some cases, it's improving housing units. In some cases, it's new building. And you're right, it does come to a lot of units that we need, and we know we have a housing shortage. But one is a housing study, and it's not proposing where the housing should be at all. It's just saying we need the housing. And the other is, what could we do with Energizer if someone bought it for $7 million? What might they want to think about doing there? So that's all that is. Again, there are no plans.
I'm not aware of any homeowner in the neighborhood who was contacted by anyone who just did the study. And it would be nice if the citizens would be included when we're doing all these studies around Bennington. You only had about 120 people who participated in the Energizer study.
Yes, Chief.
I would just like to say, all of our meetings where we discuss these things are open to the public. The public is welcome to participate at any meeting that we have. So when you say people haven't been asked, they don't need to be asked. They can come and participate without being asked.
And I will remind you that the select board always used to be required to have 2 public meetings on certain issues. And I believe when the charter was updated, that was changed. Now the select board only has 1 meeting. So if you can't be here...
Nancy, that is not accurate, and that is absolutely just not accurate, and it has nothing to do with the charter. And yes, we do have 2 meetings, and the things you're discussing are not even decisions, they are studies. So do you have any other items that you want to make us aware
Sure,
of?
I'll just comment on what you did in April. You approved huge zoning changes for this entire town. 1 meeting after 1 20-minute discussion.
No, I think you're talking, I'm thinking you're probably talking about form-based zoning, and not only did I personally attend 5 separate hearings on that, I knew that slideshow backwards and forwards, but we held a public hearing here as well. So again, Nancy, please connect with our town manager. And this is not a time for discussion, and I realize
You're right, the
I'm being
citizens
sucked
never
in.
have time for
Moving on.
discussion anymore.
I didn't get here in time to sign up.
Oh, yes, anyone else would like to speak? Jenny Dewar?
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't get here in time to sign up. First, I want to thank the fire department for taking care of Main Street. I don't know if you all realized that Bennington Pizza had a fire early this morning, and our own Bill Clark was first responder.
Wow.
And they managed to get the fire out, and because that store is connected to stores on either side. So thank you for saving Main Street. I also want to let you all know that we're having a ribbon cutting for both the Bespoke Salon Suite and the coffee bar. While they've both had soft openings, those openings haven't been so soft because they've both been packed with people instantly. But that ribbon cutting will be Friday morning at 11. We'll be at the coffee bar first, and then we'll go on to the Bespoke. So, thank you.
Thank you, that's lovely. All right, so Friday, 11 a.m. at the coffee bar, and then around the corner to Bespoke. Wonderful, thank you. All right, anyone else that didn't sign up that would like to speak? No? Okay. All right, so let's move on. Okay, next up is the Energy Committee, here to give us their yearly update to the Select Board and community. And Bruce, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to say, or if I should just invite them up.
I think we should invite up, well, there's Bill, and we'll let him be in charge. Do you want this down?
Yes, I had hoped for the projector.
Okay. I can
did
run that
the
for
presentation.
you.
I'm not sure if it's queued up or if this is going to be a technical hassle and snafu.
It could be a technical snafu, but
I didn't receive it.
Hmm?
I knew they were gonna do a presentation, but do you have your own
Device?
laptop?
I
Have
do.
your own laptop?
you can do that.
We can certainly try. Dan, can you lend us a hand on that?
Oh.
Yes.
You get it on.
I do. Or an HDMI. That's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bill, do you want to introduce yourself while we're waiting?
Yes, sorry about the technical delay. My name is Bill Karras. I'm the chair of the Energy Committee. We will be presenting here today on a couple of topics. And thank you, Bruce, if you can already pop to the next slide. Oh, we are up and running. Thank you. We'll begin with this quick overview. I'll try to outline our presentation, and Dr. Dick Dundas will first share an introduction. We all know how engaged, enormously engaged he is as a community member, and he's been integral in founding the Energy Committee and continues to participate. Next, I'll provide an update on the progress the Energy Committee has made since its founding in tackling 9 of the action items that we've been tasked to pursue. And we found some success, some marginal success, and also we realize we have quite a long ways to go. To highlight, I think, the scope and the scale and the opportunity of what we're looking at, next, Bill Christian will present on the sheer numbers of these energy opportunities in Bennington. And then I'll return to the podium to discuss the value that we believe an energy coordinator position will hold for the town. And after that, we'll have time for some discussion and questions. So with that, I'll ask Dr. Dick Dundas to kick us off. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me okay? I feel I'm smothered by this mask, but I'll try. First of all, I'm not a member of the Energy Committee. I am a member of the Climate Advocates of Bennington, and we are the group that kind of persuaded the town to form an Energy Committee. Some of our members are here tonight. Raise your hands. The meeting notice that I received said that we would have an Energy Committee update. And we will do the update, but I wanted to tell you that the main reason that we are here is to convince the Selectboard that the town really needs a paid energy coordinator. Obviously, a very important decision. In short, we need more help. Please understand that the issue is not about tightening up the municipal buildings and the infrastructure, making them more energy efficient, but it is about upscaling the entire community. It's transportation, it's heating, it's energy generation, and it's energy conservation. And our ultimate goal is to switch our town, our entire town, from fossil fuels to renewable energy. And we cannot do this well without somebody to be in the forefront that we will call an energy coordinator. And that person would be the catalyst for this effort. In addition, we will still be required by the state to comply with certain mandates. You may have seen the initial Vermont Climate Action Plan, which came out in December. And this mandates that we must greatly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And Bennington will have to be a part of that. If you look in your packet, I put together a history of energy efforts in Bennington. There's a full list there, but I wanted to highlight just a few of them. I might say that in your folder, the document that came out that was mine is all underlined, so it's very hard to read, so I'll give this to Jeannie, which is the same thing, but easier to read. She can distribute it if anyone wants it. The first highlight that I wanted to make is that the energy committee that we have now is not the first one. There was a first one in June of 2003, and at that point, it was mainly interested citizens. It was not an official town committee, but it did report to the Selectboard, and it kind of petered out after a few years. And then we have to go almost 15 years to January of 2018, when the town energy plan was created and adopted. And that document recommends 47 different recommendations, including the formation of an energy committee. So the energy committee was then created in April of 2019 as an official town committee. And in February of last year, we made our first presentation to the select board. And what was decided then was that we recommended that there would be 9 action items distilled down from the 47 recommendations. So if you look at the history here, we have about a 20-year history of trying to deal with energy issues. So I conclude that that's fairly slow progress. A lot of documents were created, but not much action. We do need to, we do have in the past 4 years, however, on the positive side, we do have some evidence of momentum building. We've done quite a bit in the past 4 years. So at a minimum, we need to implement the 9 action plans. But in reality, there is really so much more to be done, and it's all so complicated. And in addition to that, there is now an urgency to get something done because the climate crisis is already upon us. We recognize the good work that the town has done to improve energy efficiency in its buildings and its infrastructure. The improvements are said to save taxpayers $140,000 a year. That's a lot of money. And it's great work, but there is still much more to be done. So we feel that there is no combination of current town employees that can do what needs to be done. The Energy Committee cannot do what needs to be done. There are not enough volunteers in the community to do what needs to be done. The town needs an energy coordinator to help move us through this complex situation. So in closing, I just want to make an analogy, and that is that you can imagine what would happen to the town if the select board had no town manager or support staff. And that's what's going to happen to the Energy Committee if we don't have some help. Thank you.
Thank you. And to provide the update of where the Energy Committee is and highlight some of the gaps where we think this energy coordinator could fill in and achieve these goals, we'll look at where we found some successes, working with Jonas Bivak on communicating some of the projects the town has implemented to save energy, and sharing that with the community, connecting with Realtor Association and trying to ensure that energy efficiency information is being provided to new homeowners, promoting weatherization. The Energy Committee has worked closely with the Window Dresser Project and has supported a lot of buttoning up of drafty windows throughout many homes in town, and identifying funding sources, including for the Window Dressers Project, and really compiling a stack of many others that are available but take considerable legwork to secure. And then finally, we've identified a number, but one in particular model that's had success in other places, and that's EV car sharing opportunities and EVSE at multifamily housing units. And actually, we've worked pretty closely with Madison Kramer on some of that. She is pursuing EVSE for Shires housing. Next slide, please. And where we've struggled to make much progress is kind of working collaboratively with other energy committees to promote more outreach, and we've fallen short with some outreach with the weatherization project. Actually, with Window Dressers, we were able to secure more funding. The Window Dressers project was able to secure more funding, more donations than we were able to drum up business for low-income houses to access this resource. For those of you that don't know, they're basically indoor storm windows that can be easily retrofitted and save energy and money pretty simply. We've not connected with the BCRC on publicizing any of these energy-related issues, and we've not dug into the town's data to an extent of where we'd be able to baseline or track energy or greenhouse gas savings as mandated by the climate action plan that Dick mentioned. We have had some kind of higher level analysis, and Bill Christian can share that to kind of shape our understanding of the scope of our opportunity and challenge. Bill, thank you.
I'm Bill Christian, North Bennington, on the Energy Committee. I know everybody loves big numbers and pie charts. I'll keep this as short and simple as possible. This is energy used by the sector in the town of Bennington. Blue is the energy cost in dollars, which is about $24 million paid by residences in Bennington for heating and electricity. That's approximately a third of our total energy cost. That comes to $3,800 per residence. So the people of Bennington are paying a lot of money directly for home energy. I think of that as a tax. It just goes out of the town, and we could do a lot more with it if we didn't have to spend it to keep warm and keep the lights on. Yellow is about 27 million. That's a little more than the residential energy, is what we pay for gas and diesel for all of our vehicles. Another huge tax. And what we could do with $27 million a year. The orange is $31 million for commercial and industrial heating and electricity. So we could say, oh, that's businesses, that's not our responsibility, but that's still money leaving the town. A business could pay its employees a few dollars more instead of writing a check for millions of dollars of oil or propane. Green is a little under $1 million, about $900,000, which is the municipal heating, electrical, and vehicles. So that's a small part of the total, a little over 1%. And as Bill Karras pointed out, they've cut that a bit, and there's some very hardworking people that are interested in that, but it's still almost $1 million. So there's more to be done there. The gray wedge, which is about $2 million, is schools and colleges, heating and electricity. So that's who is spending the money, that's the dollars. Where does that go specifically? 70% of that, which is the gray and the orange, is fossil fuel. And that's oil, gas, propane, and diesel. That's for home heating and for vehicles mostly. That is the part, that's about $60 million a year out of our $86 million. That is the part that we have pledged to reduce by 80% within the next 28 years. That's a pretty daunting task. It costs money to save money. The bad news is, well, the good news is that by saving all of that money, that's money that we don't spend. I mean, it's a great goal to not spend $60 million a year on oil and propane and gasoline. Another good news piece of that is that we could produce a lot of that energy locally instead of bringing in gasoline from Venezuela or Montana. We could produce our own energy, which we did long ago. It's hard to look into the future, but we could produce a lot of solar energy locally on rooftops and on land which people struggle to pay taxes on, and they can't earn the money that they used to with dairy farmers and whatnot. So we could provide our own electricity, which is savings. We could also be exporting energy. Rural areas could become producers of renewable energy, and the cities would become consumers of it. Again, just like we used to provide wood and charcoal to New York City. We used to provide milk to the cities. We're not doing so much of that, but we could be providing energy. So that would be income. We could, besides solar, there are other things we could be providing wood pellets, which would give landowners more income, because right now wood is not a very high income source. So people who own wood, even small amounts of wood, they could become a more valuable source as we find ways to not burn that gas and oil and find other ways to do that. So that's a good side. The bad side is it will cost a lot, it'll take a lot of money, it takes money to save money. And so there's money involved and effort involved. And to do a good job, an energy coordinator could give us some focus, could give us advice, could get people with like-minded people together to make investments. I think of the Putnam Block as a cooperative effort to do something that no one entity could do alone. Various biofuel, cogen, solar projects, and then all sorts of weatherization. But instead of just embarking on it piecemeal, figuring out what works and how to do it, where we can get money to do it. There's a lot to be done, and I think that an energy coordinator would have no shortage of work to do in achieving these goals. There's a lot to be done, and hopefully this would be a good first step.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate outlining the numbers there to give us a sense of the scale. And our belief of this energy coordinator need is highlighted again through these action items that have been uncompleted, unfinished, unpursued. There is much to do with weatherization outreach. And public outreach in general. There's much to do with data analysis and establishing baselines and tracking progress towards state and town goals. Next slide, please. And the value is significant. From Bill's number, it's clear that a 1% energy savings in the residential and transportation sector could save the community $500,000 a year. Beyond that distributed savings, an energy coordinator pursuing funding opportunities like those outlined by the BCRC, like a number of which I've included in the packet, including some state and federal funding that might be coming down the line, EBSE opportunities, and clean heat murmurs coming down the line. There will be funding opportunities, and having shovel-ready projects in line, having an ear to the ground to understand when and where these funding opportunities will be, I think is critical for Bennington to seize them as they arise. On top of those, there's a huge opportunity for this energy coordinator to connect with the Bennington residents to help them access resources that are already available, help connect them with Efficiency Vermont or GMP rebates, help connect them with window dressers that had a surplus of funding and a dearth of interest, and help track Bennington's progress towards their energy goals. And then to kind of conclude, the Energy Committee can only do so much. We're steering this, we're steering and researching, and we simply need boots on the ground to ensure these goals are met, and really to help keep money within the community, and be sure we are first in line for any of that funding that when it does roll out. And thank you, and I'm happy to field any questions.
Great, thank you, Bill. So questions from the board? Anyone have a question or a comment? Yes, go ahead.
This is, and I don't mean to micromanage your committee at all. I'm just asking this purely for my own information. Do you, as a committee, break off into subcommittees to do some of this work?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
And we've, this in particular, we have, and we've also, towards the, I guess, electric vehicle car share at a multifamily housing, we've split that off as well and pursued it. We'll continue to pursue it.
Okay, the only reason I mentioned it is that it's been a tremendous help for us as a board to not tackle some initiatives as a full board, but to break off with a smaller number and then bring the information back.
I can also help a little bit with that. Not only have we broken off into subgroups, but we have enlisted a number of volunteers who are regularly at the meeting.
Good.
To do some of the research. Some of the people who are working, well, we mentioned a couple, so Callie and Madison Kramer and Shires, but others trying to work through this. It's just, it seems at this point in time, and maybe this is just the nature of the beast, exceptionally overwhelming, considering what the requirements are in the climate legislation from the state. All of our data is about, right now you may have noticed, is about money. It doesn't talk about greenhouse gases, and it's the greenhouse gas issue. And it's that level of greenhouse gas emission that we need to be thinking about. And that, it's really hard to translate into greenhouse gas emissions, but that's the critical issue. And so we need to be thinking about that. So I would say there's two emphases. One is the greenhouse gas. The other is we think that the town, as a municipality, has done exceptional work in this area. I can't say enough about this. And as you all know, it's part of our budget in the coming year. And if you look at the town reports, it's certainly the staff are thinking about this for the next year. You can see some of that in their reports. The dilemma comes is where the big stuff is where all of the residents live and where many of the residents work. So, and how we get around. And so those are all individual decisions. So the question, in order for us to meet this goal in the town of Bennington, we have to be communicating directly, consequentially, with every single citizen in town, every single landowner, every single renter, and that's a lot for a seven-member committee. That's all I would say.
I will say, so I was on that 2003 Energy Committee, and we actually morphed, and I think, Bill, you were too, right? And we morphed into a regional energy committee through VCRC. And so I guess one thing I would say is that better connection within the VCRC Energy Committee does still exist. I'm on it. So that would be a resource, I would say, as well. And I know that part of what Callie's been trying to do is pull the committees together. But you know, it's still a work in progress. But I would say definitely look at that. I also, the action plan you show is actually what the Energy Committee came up with last year as feasible next steps for the Energy Committee to work on. So so that's a bit confusing to hear that those are not, the dashboard in particular, there was research done on that, it was felt like we could tackle it,
and it hasn't been functional.
So, well, then energy coordinator or not, it's not going to work, right?
Right.
So that's a different issue. Yeah, if the dashboard isn't being up to date, then we can't use it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that explains that one. So we should probably cross it off if they're not going to be doing the dashboard, because that was a statewide issue. So I guess the confusions I have, and this is not news to you, Bill or Dick, I guess I'd love to hear what you think are the concrete things that an energy coordinator would be able to do that are different than what Efficiency Vermont already does, which you're familiar with, Bill, and are different from the sort of general, I mean, window dressers was a break-off group, and I do want to say that we were overambitious, and that people gave us a lot of money. We could not have handled any more window inserts. We maxed our window inserts. So, and we actually were able to carry the money over, and we are soliciting lower income individuals to use that money for their inserts this year. But it was not a, you know, we were just overambitious in terms of the amount of money we raised. So I'd love to hear what kind of concrete priorities you would expect an energy coordinator to do right out of the box, and then how you see that as different than soliciting more effective use of Efficiency Vermont down here.
Efficiency Vermont does not participate in any generation projects. So anything on the solar end, any power purchase agreements, any land leasing, any combined heat and power systems, that will be outside of the scope of Efficiency Vermont. There are, I think electric vehicle supply equipment, EVSE stuff, is also currently outside the scope of Efficiency Vermont, although Act 151 did bring Efficiency Vermont into the transportation sector, but it is still delineated by GMP, by the distribution utilities actions in that field. So to avoid redundancy, Efficiency Vermont right now, I think, is largely conducting outreach to car distributors, vehicle distributors, and offering, I think, training to salespeople to help them understand EV equipment, EV technologies, so that they can serve the community and help supply EVs to Vermonters. So there are some places I see that there's lack of support from pre-existing programs. And honestly, sifting through the funding opportunities is a challenge. I work in this space, and I'm still struggling to get a handle on it. You know, the Efficiency Vermont opportunities, the GMP rebates, those are pretty straightforward. But I mentioned the clean heat standard that may be rolling out in the state could be challenging to navigate. H518, which it would directly affect municipalities, and transitioning them from fossil fuel systems to less carbon intensive systems is also being discussed, and understanding where that is heading and when it may or may not roll out is I think, an opportunity for an energy coordinator to play a role in.
Okay, I get a sense of what you're thinking about, which is helpful. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Yes.
I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm usually not afraid to ask questions, and this is another one of those situations. It seems to me that many communities within our county are probably facing the same issues. They're probably very, very similar.
Yep.
Have you given any thought to sharing an energy coordinator? I mean, it seems like the work would be really redundant and everybody doesn't need their own.
It could be. And I'll add that Callie Fishburne at the BCRC is a part-time energy coordinator for the BCRC. She is split between 17 municipalities, and that is half-time. That is half of her positions. So she is, she's been helpful in providing resources, but I don't believe that she has the capacity to be boots on the ground pursuing these opportunities at each of her 17 municipalities, 20 hours a week. That said, I have talked with some other some other members of energy committees in the area who were interested in just that, sharing an energy coordinator. And I mentioned I would likely circle back after this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's okay.
So yes, I have looked into it, and it might be, an economy of scale that's worth, worth considering.
Any questions from the audience? Or additional comments? Hands go up. Deb, come on up.
Debbie Matt in Bennington. Not all people are on the computer and have access to computers, so you got to find some way to get the word out there to these people. You talk about efficiency Vermont. Luckily, I had signed up for their news thing, and I got notified of their rebate on the insulation. And I have to tell you, I was scared to death when I signed up for that, because I'm no carpenter, and people say, well, ask questions. Well, if you don't know, you can't ask the question. So I have to say, I went out on a limb and I went with it. And I signed up, and they said they would pay 50%. Well, evidently, they wouldn't, because it was a $4,000 cap. But I went ahead and insulated anyway. I figured that was $4,000 less that came out of my pockets. And doing rough numbers, the first year I figured I saved 200 gallons of fuel.
Wow.
But there was no contractors in the Bennington area to do this work. These guys had to come over that mountain to do the work at my house. So I reached out to several of them trying to get quotes and stuff. I really didn't know what I was doing. And to get a carpenter today, you're on a year's waiting list if you're lucky. So it's like, and all you hear about is all these scams. Well, I don't mind paying for this work, but I don't want to pay you and then have to pay him to fix what you screwed up. So I don't know if there's some place out there where you can find out where you can get somebody that can be trusted, or...
We're going through that process right now, and we started with NeighborWorks. And first we had the audit done, and then the contractor that's going to actually do the work came next. So if people are interested, Al did too, start with NeighborWorks.
I was involved with that too.
Yep.
So good.
It's
Good
been
for
seamless
you.
for us, seamless.
Yeah, and good for you for reaching out and taking that leap, and now you will be warmer and cozier as a result.
Yep.
So good. That's good information.
I don't know how you can get the word out to people. I really don't, other than going knocking on doors.
Yeah, not gonna do that.
And I have an older house, and my thoughts are maybe the older houses are the ones you should target first.
Great. Thank you. That's great. It looks like they're just lined up. Oh, no. Okay, Al, please, go on out.
I'm Alan Shepard from Bennington.
I just, hearing what folks have said, and I've sat through, because I'm part of the Energy Committee, the scale of this committee is huge, and the possibilities are enormous. And I think about some of our housing developments where people live close together, and the savings that could happen if there was inspiration and leadership to help them and help people learn how to both save energy, to use alternative forms of energy, and for those housing developments to be able to bring in that kind of energy. I know a lot of that is happening, but so much more could happen. And I think it's beyond the scope of a volunteer committee. It's the leadership that really can make that happen. And so that's really my interest, is just seeing this on the scale that it could happen. Thank you.
So I'm Marsh Hudson from Pownell, and when I first saw Bill's work on the energy expenditures for our community, it really blew my mind. I mean, $86 million is a lot of money. And if an energy coordinator could help our community to save 1% of that, it'd make a pretty nice salary. And the potentials for, if we could save 2% or 3%, it could have a huge impact. So the potential here is really exciting to me. And the need, as we know from the environmental situation in which we live, is really huge. So I appreciate the steps we've taken, and I hope we can keep moving toward this direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, well, thank you. You've given us a lot to think about and a lot of information. So we have your packets online because we wouldn't have had enough, I guess, space in our envelopes to put it all. But we have it electronically, as does the public. So that's fantastic. Thank you. All right, let's see. Next up, presentation on Pathways Vermont. John Rogers, please come up.
Good evening. Thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time and your attention. I've spoke about Pathways before to the board, and here I am again. So, in addition to being an elder Mission City Church, it's having an effort to get recovery residences to Bennington. I'm also on the Pathways Vermont board. And I joined the board after seeing them help a friend of mine who's been chronically homeless here in Bennington for close to 20 years get permanently housed. And he spent the last year of his life in a home and really benefited from this program. So I joined the board after seeing that. I didn't know about Pathways before they helped my friend. I'll wait for that.
Yes,
sorry. So Pathways is a great organization. Their focus is on those that are hard to house, chronically homeless, folks with mental health and suffering with substance use disorder. That's where they focus. It's an evidence-based program, and they call it Housing First. And they start with housing. That's where they start, to give a person a safe, warm, healthy place to live. But they just don't stop with the housing. That's the first step. They actually put a team of professionals around these individuals that help them with everything, from psychiatrists to caseworkers to nurses. They really start to work on all the things that the person needs once they're in a safe, healthy place. And like I said, I've seen it firsthand work with people in our community. Pathways currently is in 6 counties in our state. And given Bennington County has one of the highest rates of chronic homelessness in the state, 70 households experiencing chronic homelessness, Pathways is seeking to bring their Housing First solution to Bennington County. And they're focused on that. The chair of the board is focused on it. And we're currently working with legislature to get that to happen. Currently, Pathways is asking for $390,000 for the legislature to expand their contract with the Department of Mental Health to bring Housing First to Bennington County. This funding will help 30 households get permanently housed in our county. So that's pretty good return on that money. And the plan is to get that funded for this upcoming fiscal year for the budget. So I'm asking the board to write a letter of support. So I'm here tonight is to ask you to do that. And it'll go a long way to know the community is behind Pathways expansion into Bennington County. A few other organizations, including the COC, will be writing letters. And if we could have you write that letter and get that in this week, it would make a big impact. And I think Jeannie does have all the emails and the contact information on where the letter needs to go.
Yes, and in fact, John and our town manager talked this week, and we do have a draft letter, which was, I think, emailed to everyone. I have a copy of it. Do you have a copy, John?
I don't. I just have the talking points. I can handle that if you like.
So shall I read it out loud? Yes?
That's a good idea.
I think it's a good idea. All right. It's to Representative William Leopard, who is the Chair, House Committee on Healthcare. RE, proposal to expand Housing First services in Bennington County. Dear Chair Lippert and members of the committee, please accept this letter of support in reference to Pathways Vermont's proposal to expand Housing First services in Bennington County on behalf of the Bennington Selectboard. The Selectboard has been in conversations with Pathways and local leaders, and it is clear this proposal will significantly and positively impact our community. Bennington County has one of the highest rates of chronic homelessness in the state and a disproportionate need relative to population size. There are approximately 70 households experiencing chronic homelessness in Bennington County, as documented by our local coordinated entry team. Expanding Housing First would enable the state to make a significant impact on the lives of people experiencing homelessness in Bennington County and on the overall welfare of the community. Pathways Vermont is requesting $390,000 from the legislature to expand its contract with Department of Mental Health to expand Housing First services in Bennington County to meet this need. This expansion will allow Pathways to support an additional 30 households exiting chronic homelessness in our community. This investment would target households living with disabilities and significant mental health challenges who currently lack access to permanent housing. It would significantly impact the rate of chronic homelessness in our community, reducing the burden on our overtaxed emergency housing systems and improve the lives of some of our most vulnerable community members. Pathways Vermont has proven to be a successful and valuable partner, having already supported moving more than 30 households, many of them families, out of homelessness in Bennington County, utilizing CARES funding. Additionally, this year, Pathways Vermont expanded its Department of Corrections project to Bennington to support individuals exiting incarceration and housing instability under the supervision of the department. Expanding Housing First would allow Pathways to replicate the very successful blended model of support that is currently operating in 6 counties across the state. This would provide parity for Bennington County and access to the unique and essential support of a Housing First intervention that Pathways provides, and which Bennington County urgently needs. We appreciate the committee's consideration and are happy to answer any questions you may have. Sincerely, on behalf of the board, Jeannie Jenkins, Chair. So that is, I think let's have some discussion, but I think eventually what we would like is, I would like a motion to, for me to be able to sign this letter and for us to send it to Representative Leopard.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. So, all right.
Wonderful.
Did you want any discussion?
Yeah.
No?
I was just having it before this came up. I was having a conversation probably within the last week from one person who works very closely with the homeless community, and he said, you know, the one thing we really could use is housing first here in Bennington County. And he began talking to me about it and how effusive he was about it, and so I'm happy that we are supporting this effort, and please make sure that when the time comes you need something else from us, please speak out.
Will do. Thank you on behalf of the Pathways Board and the whole team. Thank you very much. We're going to pursue this as fast as we can. Help the community. Yep.
I also am thrilled to be able to do this for you and for the people that need it. Can you just speak a little bit more for me and for the public on what the wraparound services are? The housing, I certainly understand, but you know, the people that need housing probably need other services as well. And can you just fill in a little bit on
Exactly.
that
So
information?
Pathways will bring an entire team, a housing first team to the community. So there'll be nurses, there'll be psychiatry care, there'll be a case manager that meets with them weekly. The only requirement to be part of the program, one, you have to be chronically homeless, but the only requirement is that you agree to let someone meet with you weekly from Pathways. So the key is, and what makes the program so effective is, we just don't house people and let them isolate. We house them and then we start really working on the root needs, you know, what's really going on and got them into the situation they're in. And so by bringing professionals in from all these different areas, caseworkers, helping them with jobs, nurses, psychiatrists, they're really working with that individual to support them forward. So the cliche is it's housing first, not housing only. That really resonates.
And I remember coming to an event many months ago at the church, and there was this mantra almost of meeting the person where they are and building from there, and it makes so much sense. It really does. So, great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, Jenny.
Would it be helpful for other organizations to write letters also in Bennington?
Yes, absolutely.
And would it be helpful for individuals to write letters too? Or
I think the timeliness of it is moving so fast through the house right now that it's at, you know, by the time we were able to get out and get those letters all in, we're going to miss that window. So
what's the date? When are the letters due?
this week, like, we're hoping this letter goes out tonight or tomorrow, that quick.
This week by Friday?
Yeah.
Or by tomorrow?
Well, this week, by this week.
So
So
Friday
we've got
will be
the,
okay.
yeah, Friday will be
I
fine.
asked because I want to ask my board if we can write a letter, but I have our board meeting on Thursday morning, so we won't be able to get the letter out until Thursday.
Yeah, that would be fine. I would love, yeah. Yes, thank you.
Thank you for asking that. John, do you want to take this letter or do you want us to mail it?
Email is best, if it goes to that email list,
Okay.
starting with the chair.
Okay, so we will email it to everybody.
That'd be
Okay.
awesome.
You could mail it as well.
Okay.
I have one question, John. The money that you're asking for, how long will that provide support for your program?
That would be an annual amount that will go into the budget. We hope that it'll be funded each year going forward.
John, do you know how long the other 6 counties that are getting money have been getting money?
I don't know. I know that Pathways has been here for a little over a decade in Vermont, and the program started in New York in the mid-90s, so it's built across the country now. But it's been in Vermont only a little over a decade.
The deal seems to be, though, that once it goes into the budget, like the other counties just get renewed each year.
Yeah, it gets annualized.
Yes, Sarah.
So I guess I just wanted to say, if another organization wanted to write in, does that have, do you have the representative's email address on there so they could just send it straight to him?
Let me say that again. You're asking if people in the public want to write in, is there email addresses to send it to?
His emails.
I think we're going to be a little bit strategic about it, actually, and not inundate the chair with letters.
Sure.
We can get a few key influencers in the community to say we're behind this.
Right.
I think that's going to be more effective than just, you know.
Yeah, I meant the organization that Jen referenced.
Certainly,
Yeah, so
I'm
Ginny
going to track
has
you
it.
down after the meeting and get you some contact information if you want.
Yeah, Ginny has it.
Yeah, thanks, sir. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. All right, so next up, we have an item under Economic Development Strategy and Infrastructure Update. It's the digitizing land records. Is that, Cassie, are you speaking to that, or Dan? Who's speaking to that?
So basically, I included in everyone's packet the information that I've compiled so far and a bunch of letters of support from people who would be using these systems, and I just wanted to make myself available to the board for any questions you might have.
And so what you would you like a motion? So you need a motion from us to release ARPA funds. This would be our first release, yes, of use of ARPA funds.
I've been preparing for this for a year and a half since the CARES Act first came out, but timing-wise and financially, it wasn't nearly enough. And of course, I had about a month before a presidential election to pull it all together, and I wasn't prepared. So now this is a year and a half later, and a culmination of a lot of research and pricing and going to participating clerks to try out different systems to figure out what was a good fit for us.
Great. Did you have a question?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Okay. All right. You ready to make a motion? Go ahead.
I am. I would move that we release $185,000 from ARPA funding for the digitizing of land records as requested by the town clerk. And if I get a second, I'll speak to it.
Second.
Great. I'll speak very quickly to it. This seems to me to be a no-brainer. There is, unless you've actually tried to do a land record search, it's hard. This seems very abstract. But if you ever have had to do that, this will make the work of realtors, and it'll actually, for homeowners, it'll make life simpler and cheaper, both sellers and buyers. So I see absolutely no downside, and I was amazed at how little it was going to cost. So I would be all for this.
I don't think this is going to happen immediately, correct? Because ARPA money's not even been released yet?
Oh, we have.
We have this. Okay, good. Never mind then. Because I was thinking, is this money going to be enough if it doesn't happen for 2 years, but it's immediate?
We have half of it in the bank.
Great.
So
Never mind.
essentially, what would happen is, once I'm given the go-ahead, we can sign the contract to at least have the system in place, and Kayla and I will be trained on the system, and we can use it immediately going forward. The back work, there is a backlog with the company because of all of these ARPA funds and several towns signing up. So the 40 years that we're looking to do as far as back work wouldn't be done until probably the fall.
But the contract is signed, so it doesn't matter. Yep, okay.
Great. Yes, Sarah.
And I just want to say, sorry, I've got some still vocal issues, so I just want to say this was on our tier 1 that we already okayed, correct?
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yes. Yes, it was a tier 1 project, yes.
And excuse me, I'd like to clarify, it was 185 you moved?
So
65.
you suggested 185, but actually I thought that was good because it's 165 plus the monthly fees.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
so, and if it's
the
more,
quote is around 165, $66,000.
Okay, that's right. Yes, I knew.
So it was 185 is what the motion is.
So leave it 185?
Do you want to amend your motion?
You want to, yeah, I think it's fine to leave.
Yeah, I think we can, and if, you can't spend more money than it costs.
Right, so the overage will come back.
The overage will come back.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Gary.
Cassie, this is for the 40 years back. Do you anticipate in the future that you'll go further back? Will that be done in-house, or will you not? It'll just be
So
this-
once we know how to use the system, as time allows, we could certainly do that, yes. Go further back.
Would you need to, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth doing if we have the time and the ability to do it, because sometimes, a title search, full title search has to go at least 40 years back. But, so that's 1982 at this point. But maybe a person bought a house in 85, and then the previous owner to that was back in the 60s. You'd have to go back to that 1960s deed to do the full 40-year search, because 1985 wouldn't be enough.
40 years sounded like a lot till you said 1982. That was still on my chin.
Not that long ago.
You're telling me, Gary.
Yeah, sort of depressing.
You should have 80 years.
All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board or comments? Anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this? No? All right, so let's call a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Sounds unanimous. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Lovely. All right, so next update. Next we have up the action steps for the Declaration of Inclusion. And Tom and I have met with a number of individuals, and I'm going to turn this over to Tom to kick this off.
Thank you. You'll all remember that back on October 25th, this board adopted a Declaration of Inclusion for the town of Bennington at the request of the Bennington Rotary. At that time, we also formed a subcommittee consisting of Jeannie and myself, tasked with reaching out to the community for ideas to help transition the Declaration from words into action. We approached numerous people, businesses, towns doing similar work, agencies. We heard back from about 20, and I'll list them here. Abundant Sun, Arlington Memorial Anti-Racism Committee, Bennington Bookshop, Better Bennington Corporation, Bennington County Open Arms, Bennington County Regional Commission, Bennington County Workforce and Education Group, Bennington Rotary Club, CX Associates, Energy Engineering Consulting, Interfaith Council of Bennington, MSK Engineering, Richmond Equity Committee, the Rutland Area NAACP, the SVSU Equity Office, the Town of Barry, the Town of Middlebury, the Town of Milton, Vermont Businesses for Social Responsibility, the Vermont Center for Independent Living, and the Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity. Our intention was to collect these suggestions into a marketplace of ideas for everyone to be able to draw from. It's important to note that for this work to succeed, it's going to need to become a part of the fabric of our community. The town, schools, businesses, civic organizations, and individuals must do this work together. We need to be proactive rather than reactive. The ideas we're about to present are there for everyone to use and collaborate on. This list is by no means complete. Becoming more welcoming and inclusive is an ongoing process. And I will now kick it back to Jeannie, who will go over some of these ideas.
Yes. So we have broken the list into two groups, things that seem to be town or school system driven, and things that appear to be community driven. And I'll just say at the outset, some of those things could be in either category. So a little bit of this is arbitrariness, but we put it where we thought the idea best was housed. And also, one of the lovely things in talking with groups is that a lot of people had similar ideas. And so we did try and summarize the ideas. So there may be things that aren't included that were exactly what people asked, suggested, and people are more than welcome, groups are more than welcome to go back in and add more ideas. And in fact, we hope you will. So this is a living document, as Tom just said, and we do hope, that people will continue to add to it. So on the town and SVSU-driven action steps, those include encouraging the adoption of the Declaration in our schools and including it on the website. Having a town questionnaire and interview process to gain insight and identify themes from underrepresented groups in Bennington. Create a school and or a town contest using the words in the Declaration of Inclusion. Create a branded statement that captures the town's sense of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Highlight ongoing inclusion work in the media. Review the town's accessibility plan with an eye to what we can do that goes beyond the basics. Look at ways to increase engagement, the engagement of restorative justice organizations and mental health professionals in our policing efforts. Encourage ongoing training for the town, school, and businesses around equity and fair and impartial practices. Create venues for employers such as the town, the SVSU, and the business community to learn and work together on hiring, retention, and support for a diverse workforce. Learn from other towns and school systems and develop networking opportunities. Develop public restroom facilities in additional parks and park and recreation spaces in town. Review accessibility in playgrounds and recreation, including equipment and location. Select boards should look for ways to integrate inclusion discussions and practices into town policies and culture. The Vermont League of Cities and Town resources on equity and inclusion should be utilized as appropriate. We should build and strengthen groups that support inclusion at the high schools. The select board should continue to evaluate and discuss the town vision at their meetings. And then the last general suggestion in this category was the town should revisit the resources on the town's website to include organizations that invite LGBTQ plus and BIPOC, low income, and people with disabilities. So it's quite a broad list. There's a lot that can be done there, and they're all, I think, actionable ideas. And then I'm going to send it back to Tom.
Okay, and I will go over some of the ideas we got for action steps that could be more community-driven. As Jeannie said, there is a lot of crossover here. Weave the culture of welcoming throughout Bennington by encouraging organizations, institutions, and the town to examine activities, practices, and social media with an eye toward inclusivity. Encourage ongoing community dialogue around what it means to be welcoming. Help new and not so new residents connect with existing organizations to create a sense of belonging. Create a town-wide mechanism for addressing concerns and providing accountability as a community to the Declaration of Inclusion. Explore ways for ongoing community input and education to strengthen inclusion and diversity. Continue to work to engage marginalized populations. Encourage equity and inclusion statements on websites for businesses and organizations. Include inclusivity classes on websites and in ads and flyers for community meetings. Clauses, not classes. Events and forums with 1, wording that actively invites people with disabilities to attend, and 2, include specific contact information for assistance. Use community spaces, including parks, trails, and the community center, as ways to encourage all to meet, engage, and enjoy each other. Encourage and support opportunities to highlight cultural diversity in food, music, art, holidays, etc. Encourage business and civic organizations with equity groups to combine efforts, share best practices, and encourage the development of equity groups in other organizations. Build additional cultural capacity within institutions such as libraries and museums. Utilize existing organizations as equity and inclusion resources, and start an annual food festival. Again, this is all work in progress. Community members that wish to make suggestions, I believe Joan is putting a button on the town website. If you represent an organization, you may list that, but no individual names will be posted online.
Super. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to give you a flavor of what we've heard thus far. It's all really wonderful. I think we wanted to just open it up to the select board and then to the community members to, if anyone has anything that really stands out, or if you have particular thoughts about where we might start, that would be great to hear. Otherwise, we'll bring it back probably at our March 14th meeting to have some more discussion on it. But any immediate thoughts from the board? Yeah.
I just thought on, let's see, about halfway down the list of town and SVSU driven action steps where you list the town, SVSU, business community. I believe the hospital is making a very intentional effort. You might want to just add them
Yes.
to that list. And
Yes.
as a white woman, I'm well aware that I don't have the perspective of a person of color, and I'm wondering how many of these organizations had BIPOC representation. I just want to make sure that their perspective came through loud and clear.
I would say 5, maybe.
You felt like you had enough input
Yeah.
from the BIPOC community.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would, I think we are hoping to have twice as many
Right.
people engage in the next 2 months as we've had in the last, 2 months. So I think it's a good start. There certainly is, I don't know, there may be 4 organizations on here.
The reason I bring it up is that we're going through an issue where I work right now, and BIPOC were not included in some decision-making, and it's a thing. So I just wanted to, this list is amazing. Everything here is just amazing, but it dawned on me, like, I hope it wasn't a bunch of white people trying to do this in a vacuum. And that is not the case.
Well, I'm hoping not. No,
Yeah.
it didn't seem so.
Great.
But we are hoping, the reason there will be a button on the website is so that people can continue to share ideas. People's individual names won't go up, as Tom was saying.
Right.
Organizations can, but it'll say individual.
Right,
It's
great.
Individual
Great.
suggestion.
This is really great
So-
work. Really great work.
It's a work in progress. Any other thoughts? Concerns? All right, anyone from the public? No? Oh, yes? Okay, please, come on up.
I really wish that I'd stop hearing about the awful white people. I wish that everybody would want to work together as a group. But all it seems that I'm hearing that we need to break people up into different groups and to different parts. I think the people of this town have gone out of their way, the majority of us, to welcome and help everybody. But that certainly isn't what I'm hearing at these meetings, what I'm reading about in the paper. And I just wish we would focus on treating everybody equally and the same, rather than trying to divide us.
Thank you. All right, and then, let's see, where are we? Next up. All right, so if nothing else on that, then we will move to the Tiff District Annual Report, and Dan is already there.
Okay, it should be quick. Just kind of a reminder, we've done this the last 4 years, I guess. Every year, we are required as a community, a TIF district community, to present or submit a report regarding Bennington's TIF district to the Vermont Economic Progress Council, the folks that oversee TIF districts. The report basically summarizes the status of the TIF district, perhaps the most important pieces of data, but most important pieces of data are where our TIF district grand list stands, and any debt that we've incurred and any tax increment we've retained. Since we haven't incurred any debt, we're not retaining any tax increment. So really the main piece of data that we'll be reporting is our grand list value. The grand list value we use for this year's report is from April of 2020, so 2 years ago, just based on the way the time works for grand lists and for fiscal years. And because of that, we do see a slight, well, it's not that slight, but a decrease of about 1.179 million, and that's mostly because of the tear down of the structures before the Putnam block was reconstructed. We will see a significant increase next report, which will be April of 2021, and then the report after that will be April 2022, where we caught up to where we actually are right now in our reporting. But that's why you see that decrease in the grand list value. Other than that, I mean, the report reflects the fact that the Putnam Phase 1 has been completed. As you folks know, we will be requesting or asking the board to approve a request to extend the TIF district. We have a special meeting scheduled for March 7th at 6 p.m. unless you folks would like to have it earlier, but if it's 6 p.m. we can do that, or 5 or 5:30. But that is kind of the status of our TIF district as it stands. And the only action I need this evening is a simple acknowledgement that you folks have received the report. And then I will send this report up to the folks at VEPC. And like I said, I'll be back in front of you folks with our consultant, White and Burke, to talk about the TIF extension request at the March 7th special meeting. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the report or, in general about what the upcoming meeting regarding the extension request will entail.
Any questions for Dan? No? All right. Any questions from the audience for Dan? Yes?
What's TIF stand for?
I should have.
Good question.
Tax Increment Financing District, and that was my mistake. I did okay with Pepsi, but I didn't do it with TIF. I apologize for that.
All right, so we're acknowledging, thank you so much for presenting the report.
Thank you, and I'll see you March 7th for more on that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next up is implementing the town vision, and the big item that we had under this was declaration of inclusion action steps. But I do want to say that the select board is strongly encouraging people to speak at town meeting because it should be a time where we share our thoughts. So the town meeting, as you know, will be over Zoom this year. There is already a link up under on the website for people to sign up to speak if they would like to. It's on the town website under the government tab, and then the first item under that is town meeting. If you don't sign up, you still can speak, but what signing up does is get you in a queue, and it helps us know how many people might be interested in speaking at town meeting. So it's the same rules as public comment, 3 minutes, should be information that you think would be of interest to the community that you want to share. But I do really strongly urge you to sign up if you would like to speak at town meeting. I think we've had very few comments in the last couple of years, and we'd love to reinvigorate town meeting.
And town meeting is February 28th.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes.
At 7:30.
At 7:30.
At the earliest, but yeah.
Preceded by the school district meetings.
Okay. Anything else under implementing the vision? Yes, go ahead.
Just one thing, I would encourage the public to reading the task force's report, the task force that we've put out. Please read the report, it's there. And then please make comments. There's a comment period that's available. You don't have to come to this meeting to make a comment. You can actually make a comment from your own home computer or mail it in, or there's lots of different ways in which you can communicate those. So I would just encourage people to make those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And the comment period?
Ends on the March 7th, I believe.
I believe that's accurate. So, okay, so you still got another week at least.
Well, got 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Where are we? It's
Yeah,
Valentine's
3
Day.
weeks.
Right,
We're only
okay.
on-
3 weeks. We're only on week 1.
February 14th.
Never mind. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. That was an important thing to talk about.
I thought advancing the town vision was where you talked about the police oversight committee.
So advancing the town vision the reason we changed the name from community policing to implementing the town vision is because if you listen to the vision that is read at the beginning of each meeting, you'll see it's much broader. It really does speak to being a welcoming community. And so everything from inclusion to community policing is under that umbrella.
But I thought the last time you spoke about it, under that wording, you talked about the police oversight committee. So you're not going to talk about it tonight?
That's what I just spoke about. That is exactly what I just spoke about, Nancy. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. They have issued a report. The task force has issued a report regarding the name all of a sudden was lost.
It's CPAR, Community Policing Advisory Review Board.
Thank you. No wonder I couldn't remember. At any rate, that report is out. The proposal is out. And we are asking the public to comment on it for the record.
And they're going to come before the board.
On the 21st.
Next week.
In December, when I raised concerns that we hadn't had public discussions, that does the report tell how much of a budget you want for this?
So, Nancy, the report is out for public comment for a month. On the 21st, which is next Monday, the task force is coming to a special meeting in this room at 6 to go over their findings and their recommendations.
Which is open to the public.
And that's a public meeting. That's a special public meeting. And the comment period will then continue until March 7th. So you could say things in public, you could say things orally, but we're encouraging people to put their thoughts down in writing because you tend to think it out more when you have to put something in writing. So we find that more useful. Plus, then it's fairly straightforward to compile all the information coming in.
So you're only going to have one public discussion before town?
No, we are not.
Nancy, the whole reason for having them do the report on next week, on the 27th, or 21st rather, is we will then start, I think on the, whatever the meeting is, the 14th, we will introduce the resolution. There'll be a discussion then. I'm sure there'll be conversation from the floor as well as within the board. And then we will do it again on the 28th of March. And so that's a third opportunity, in addition to more than a month of public comment anytime you want, just by writing your comments.
But you know many people...
Nancy, could I please get you to step up to the mic? People at home won't hear what you're saying. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot.
It's okay.
You know that many people don't have access to get online. A lot of seniors never learn to use a computer.
So Nancy, they can go to the public library and read it there.
Don't you think we deserve to hear from everybody before town meeting? Because if they're not happy with what you want to do with the police oversight committee at the second meeting in March, there's nothing we can do.
So at town meeting, a person could choose to use their 3 minutes to talk about oversight, but and that's perfectly fine, but they can also do it they can do it on the 21st, they can do it at town meeting, they can do it on the 14th, of March, they can also speak on the 28th of March.
But I brought this up in December. When you started the process back 2.5 years ago, you said the people of Bennington would be included every step of the way.
And they have been.
We haven't been for 4 months.
And I would say that, well, they have been, and the meetings, which I've gone to all but one of the task force meetings, have either been on Zoom or in person. Cat TV covers them, so you can watch them several times, after the meeting happens. The meetings are every 2 weeks. There is actually a public comment period at each meeting.
And the meetings that were in person, people were welcome to come and sit.
I realize that, but there's a big difference with making a comment and asking a question and getting an answer. And I think if the public had been involved, we would be looking at a very different result than what I'm looking at for this proposed committee.
Nancy, people have to make choices about whether they want to be involved or not. But it has been an open process for the whole 4 months, and it is now an open process for the next 2 months. So, Nancy, you are the only person that is raising this right now.
I don't know what more we could possibly do other than go door to door and tell people what's going on. I believe we have gone over and above what is expected of us to include the public. If people choose to not participate for whatever reason, that is their choice. It's been in the paper. We go over and over this at every single meeting, inviting the public, giving them the dates, telling them what to do, where to get information. I just don't know what more we can possibly do.
But for a year, you spent time, over a year, at every meeting, you read off policies. I don't understand why this committee, we weren't allowed to ask questions and get input. That may have changed what they were doing.
No, again.
You were.
Huh?
Nancy, you were allowed, you were able to come, if you could come to the meeting either by Zoom or in person, you could have asked the committee, or the task force, any question you wanted.
And you said the last time, and in all the meetings, it said the last 10 minutes, citizens could make comments. Making a comment isn't the same as asking a question and getting an answer. And that's what we were promised. This is the most important part of what you've done in 2.5 years. And you've had 10 people decide how they want this committee to be set up. I think the rest of us have been waiting to have these public discussions.
All right, so your next chance to have a public discussion will be next Monday, when the task force members are here, as well as Brian Core from NACOL. So that is a special public meeting for the purpose of discussing any questions you have or anything that is not clear about the documents and the recommendations they're making. The select board will take this up, when do we take it up? On March 14th.
And we vote March 28th.
And then we vote March 28th. So there are 3 meetings at which the public can comment in person if they don't want to comment online. But there are computers at the library, there's information at the library, so I'm not...
And as far as the budget, we don't know what that's going to be?
We haven't even made any decisions. We will take up... The select board at this point is in listening mode. We'll take it up on the 14th. On the 21st, we're not making decisions. We are in listening mode and asking questions.
But the budget we're voting on March 1st starts in July. It goes to June of 2023. If you're going to have this police oversight committee, they're going to need a budget. Stu said you don't have money in the budget for the committee. So where would the money come from?
I have no idea, so that will certainly have to be a consideration.
And you can help us spread the word.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I say something?
Absolutely.
Nancy, thank you for speaking. I just wanted to say, because of open meeting law, you have more access to these meetings than many of us here.
I'm sorry, I couldn't even catch that.
I'm sorry, my voice
I know.
is still very tough. Because of open meeting law, some of the committees that we have, you have more access to some of these meetings than some of us here.
Oh, I think many people feel we've been shortchanged. And we should have had the discussions, and you should have made your decision before a town meeting. So if citizens weren't happy, they could defeat the budget. And I hope people do get out and defeat the budget, because what I'm reading...
Nancy, now you are out of order, because we are on an agenda item, and this is not a time for you to share. You had your 3 minutes.
Okay, you're right. And
Thank
the public didn't get the input and the answers we were promised 2.5 years ago.
That's your opinion.
All right. Okay, I think we were at manager... Were we at manager's report? Where did we go awry here? Okay, I think we were at manager's report, please.
Yes, I have 2 action items. One is essentially a redo. Back in April of 2021, this board approved an application for state funding to assist with a study of 3 pressure-reducing valves in our water system. The board took an action authorizing the chair to sign the application at that time. Unfortunately, the state sought much more information than we had in the application at that time. And given the amount of time that has passed, we have been asked to have the board reauthorize the application. What this loan does, though, is it combines the initial preliminary planning and design. So it's a step 1 and 2 application. The state is fine with that, and I have the signature page. We only need circulate for signatures. This has already been approved by the board at that time. So I'll just circulate that. I've printed the names, so if you can, as usual, they only give us 5 lines, so I've added 2 to give you all an opportunity to sign. The second item is one that arose when we began to talk about whether or not we should have online meetings once again. And in talking with town council, even though the legislature and the governor have authorized a move to online meetings through the end of 2022, council felt that the board, if it's going to move in that direction, it should at least authorize the chair at a public meeting to call for a change to online meetings if it's deemed appropriate. So what I'm asking you to do is a motion to authorize the chair to call for online meetings when deemed appropriate.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? And all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, great, thank you.
And one more piece, because of we are getting into the late evening hours. I raise in my informational piece a concern about a piece of legislation, S-254, which currently resides in the Senate Judiciary Committee. It is a law that is proposed to eliminate qualified immunity for police officers. This law is being pursued with the idea that somehow we need to hold our police officers accountable, and those who are damaged by a police officer in the act of his or her duties, whether purposeful or not, don't have any right to sue the officer or to recover any damages, which is of course not true. You can bring an action against a municipality if an officer acting under the auspices of the municipality, you can sue the municipality. Yes, you can't get to the officer, the individual officer, but you can certainly recover damages from the town. And that has been done numerous times throughout the state of Vermont for actions that officers took that were ultimately deemed to be constitutionally outside the law. So I'm very concerned about this particular law because what it will do is place an unusual amount of liability on the individual officer. It will, in fact, it's broader than just qualified immunity. I'm being told now the language is such that it's all immunity. So rather than simply look to deal with constitutional violations that may arise out of a police officer's conduct, now we're talking about any action. An officer can then be individually sued because they have lost that protection that qualified immunity provides. Obviously, the League of Cities and Towns is opposed and has been testifying in opposition. I have already contacted our delegation early on to express my concerns because in this day and age, we are having such a hard time recruiting police officers. Police officers are leaving the police forces in droves. They're changing positions, they're changing jobs, simply because there is a very big target on their backs. Thanks in part, obviously, to the bad actions of numerous police departments and police officers throughout the state, throughout the United States. Not so much, certainly not in Bennington and not so much in the state of Vermont. But nonetheless, this law is patterned after a law that was passed in Colorado. I think it's could be very, very damaging to our abilities to recruit and retain officers if it passes. And I'm not asking the board to do anything. I just wanted to bring it to your attention. The Senate Judiciary has taken a 2-week recess on it. They've taken a ton of testimony, both in favor of it and in opposition to it. But I see that I think it's a very dangerous piece of legislation. And there are many other ways that you can get at the bad actors in police departments than simply allowing everyone to sue anyone individually for any action that officer may take, whether it's a legal action or not, as long as they feel damaged. So I bring that to your attention. Just the last two things. You recall the stormwater permit issue that was we brought up several months ago, where the state is now, through a rule change, requiring that there are three subdivisions that are involved, totaling 175 homeowners. These developments do not have homeowners associations, and so the state is mandating that either they form one and take over and control runoff from impervious surfaces on private lands within the development, or that the town somehow take over control as part of its stormwater permit. I reached out to all 175 homeowners via letter. I've talked with a number of them. I've received letters from a number of them. I have yet to find anyone that is in favor of creating a homeowners association within their development. They are willing to allow the town to take over whatever actions are required. Unfortunately, I don't know what those are yet. I've reached out to our engineers, and as soon as I understand what our next steps are, I'll report back to this board. Because this board's going to have to make a decision whether or not we try to force the issue on the homeowners, or whether we simply accept their concerns and develop some sort of a permitting system, I imagine, that will control impervious surfaces on private property.
And the costs associated with that?
I have no idea.
And they become, so if it were a homeowners association, the homeowners association would pay?
If the homeowners association would become a co-applicant to the town. So they would then be responsible for regulating the expansion of impervious surfaces on private properties within those developments. If they don't have that, then it's up to the town to take on that. And now, I'm thinking some sort of a permit process whereby you get a permit for a garage, you want to add on a garage, you want to extend your driveway, you're not going to need a permit to pave that driveway. So I have no idea what it will be. I have no idea what the cost will be, but the majority of the homeowners are opposed to taking on that responsibility. And then the last thing is kind of a heads up. I had a meeting with Casella's folks about a week and a half ago. In 1988, 89, Casella purchased the transfer station that was constructed by Vicon Industries at our landfill after Vicon went out of business. They purchased it from the trustee, and it was operated as a municipal facility. Basically, even though they owned the facility, we ran the scale house, we ran the scales, we collected the funds, and we paid them. Over the years, they have taken on the financial responsibility. They hire now the scale house operator. They have replaced the scales. They are now running the facility for those things that are the town's responsibility, where we charge a fee. They are reimbursing us the cost that we are entitled to. They are keeping the tip fees for themselves, so there's not that back and forth of funds between the town and the contractor. The state has now stepped in and said, well, if that's the case, then you are a private facility and you must pay a tax on the amount of solid waste that goes through your facility. As a municipal facility, it was exempt. So Casella has come to us and just indicated that they are analyzing what those changes mean. More than likely, it will mean an increase in your tip fees at the transfer station. For the person who's doing business by the bag or two, it's probably not going to be significant. The significant cost will be for those large haulers that are bringing tons of trash into the facility. But When I know what the impacts will be, that Casella will be back to me. It will most likely require a change in our tip fee schedule, and we'll deal with that when the time comes. But I wanted to give you a heads up and the people in the community a heads up that these changes are coming down. And thankfully, that's all I have.
Okay, all right. So next is the upcoming agenda. So for another month, we are meeting every single week. So this coming Monday, February 21st, the task force will be providing their report and answering questions. On Monday, February 28th, we have town meeting, which is on Zoom, and we hope you will sign up to speak. Following day, on March 1st, we vote. Then the following Monday, March 7th, we have a public hearing on the Tiff extension. And then on the next Monday, March 14th, it's our regular meeting. And we know we have ARPA update and action steps, further discussion on action steps for the Declaration of Inclusion. Anything else that's on the agenda? That's enough. Okay, all right. So that brings us to other business. Anyone have other business? Yes.
I noticed on Main Street in downtown today that someone was out in the overnight hours sticking hearts all over the windows up and down the street. And I just wanted to say to these nefarious vandals, thank you very much, and we love you too. And as we mentioned, as we heard earlier, there was a fire at Bennington Pizza early this morning, and I spoke with Heather Hassett this morning and asked her if she would like me to say anything here about that, and she said that if anything, I should take this opportunity to remind people how important it is to shop from our local merchants downtown. So please take that to heart and spend your money here in Bennington whenever possible. Thanks.
I just want to express my sympathies to the owners of the Hassets of the pizza shop, and I too saw the hearts pasted around town, and I think it's fair to say this year it was a real heart attack.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Gene, anything? No. Bruce?
One quick thing, a reminder to the public that the Headwaters Park is great for recreation, but it is not great for any motorized vehicles. Please do not run motorized vehicles in that park, or for that matter, most any other park, except where it's designated. Thank you. It would be nice to be able to utilize that without having to deal with snowmobile trails and other vehicle trails. So thank you for paying attention to that.
Yes, you can deal with my voice. So I just wanted to wish two of our local merchants happy anniversary to Farm Road and the Madisons.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. Okay. All right, I have one thing. Gary, this is going to be embarrassing to you. So congratulations to Gary, Corey, and Central Line Architects for earning the highest LEED Sustainability Certificate, the Platinum level. So LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, and the objectives are major tools for the development of buildings that support advanced sustainability goals and fight climate change. So Central Line Architects earned the award for the design of Horn Hall, which is a new dorm at Williams College. And from all of us, congratulations to you and your staff. Yeah, no, it's very cool.
It was an exciting project.
Sure. Okay, with that.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor? Are you seconding it? Yeah, all those in favor. All right, we're out of here.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.